Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hey guys, this is your host, Alicia Dubrell from Insight Media. Today, I have the privilege to interview Troy Wilkinson on a problem that I didn't even know really existed, and that is ransomware. Troy has an exciting past, and he's here today to talk about a subject that every business owner should not only be aware of, but they should be prepared for, which makes him one of my top interviews to date. The issue of ransomware is a serious one, and one that many business owners don't even exist. I know I didn't. So without further ado, I want to welcome Troy Wilkinson from Axiom Cyber Solutions. Hi, Troy, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Alicia. I'm glad to be here.
This is exciting. So you have an extensive resume, and through my research, I saw that you spent some time in law enforcement. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I got my start in law enforcement about 20 years ago in South Carolina, and just gravitated towards the technology side of law enforcement and investigations. Worked my way up into investigations, and eventually as the sergeant there over IT forensics and investigations related to computer technology. And so we were doing cases like child pornography investigations, online fraud cases, and things like that for about 5 years when I was headhunted by the U.S. State Department to go overseas and work in an embassy in Eastern Europe.
And that was in Kosovo, right?
That's right, in Kosovo. It was post-war, so as you remember, in 1999, the NATO forces pushed the Serbian forces out of Kosovo, and then the government that was stood up there needed some assistance from some nations to help them get back on their feet. So the U.S. had a lot of troops there, as well as some resources like myself that were helping the local government kind of get things stood back up. And my job was to stand up the cybersecurity and investigation team for the local police department there in Kosovo.
Well, that had to be a change of pace.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And, that mission is still going on today. That's 16 years after the war. And, the European Union now is running that mission, and it's still going strong. Kosovo's a great place. There's a lot of great people there. And, there's still a lot of tension on both sides, but I think they've made tremendous progress since the war in 99.
What made you get into the IT field?
So, it's funny because a lot of people have the same story, but just like most folks, I started with technology as a young child. I got my first Tandy 8000 computer at the age of 8. My mom bought it from a neighbor, and I started writing computer game programs, the random games that you could find in a programming book back then. And I used to save my code on a cassette tape. At the time, it was the only media that you could save to. And, so I started at a very young age. So through high school and junior high and on into college, everything that I was doing was focused on math, science, and technology.
You must have been a really smart kid.
I don't know if my parents would agree with that, I think.
Well, it looks like you're doing well so far.
No, it's just I always enjoyed those subjects and kind of trying to break things. My mom said I would like to take things apart just to see if I could put them back together. It's the same thing for computer systems. You're trying to find the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses, and find out how to break things just so you can fix it and stop it from being broken by somebody else.
Troy, can you tell me a little bit about why you and your wife, Shannon, started Axiom Cyber Solutions?
Absolutely. It's a great question. When we were in Kosovo, we started a family. My wife and I met there in the mission area. She was with the United Nations as a civilian staff member working in technology. Former graduate of UNLV, and, she had some family here in Vegas. So we decided once we started a family, this was the place to move to. And so once we started our family and got jobs in the technology sector here in Las Vegas, we quickly found that there were no local companies that were very reliable or that you could count on to be there. Most of the time, people were being flown in from San Francisco or Denver to help with cybersecurity and some of the larger project implementations. So we stepped out on our own to create Axiom to give people here in Las Vegas a holistic partner that is here at the door to answer the phone whenever you need their help, and somebody that's just down the street instead of having to jump on a plane and get here the next day.
So what exactly does Axiom do?
So Axiom is a cybersecurity company. We focus on three things, really. We have managed firewalls, and that's the managed devices that we produce and we send out to the business, and then we manage it fully for the business. We take away that headache of having to manage your own cybersecurity or worry about getting hacked. So what we do is we send out a configured firewall, and the firewall is kept up to date every single day by our engineers, and it's monitored just like ADT would monitor your house. We monitor your business to make sure nobody is hacking in. And then we also provide very valuable monthly reports. And, all of our customers that once they see that monthly report about the attacks and the scans that they're getting at their business, it just turns on a light bulb, and they're very thankful that they've employed our service. That's one of our products. The second product is the retail side of things, where we sell our firewalls just retail, like a SonicWall or a Cisco or Juniper. That's a retail sale where the customer ends up managing it themselves. And our third product line is our professional services. That's where we go in and do vulnerability tests, pen tests, and things to help the company get more prepared for hacks and attacks. And that's a holistic approach from the inside out, depending on what your business model is. If you have a web-facing product or something like that, we can help determine the best way to protect your business.
So you help business owners basically protect themselves from cyber attacks, is that correct?
That is correct. And one of the things that we feel like we do a little bit differently than some of the larger companies is that we focus on small business. We've made a very affordable solution that's fully managed, something that small business owners don't have to put a lot of effort in. We understand that small businesses don't have a lot of money to invest in cybersecurity protections. Large corporations have millions of dollars, and they have large teams of people that are managing their firewalls for them. But, the small business owner that has maybe 10 employees still has very valuable intellectual property, something that makes their company their secret sauce, per se. They have, customer data, they have credit card data, they have employee data and bank records, and all that stuff is very valuable to hackers, no matter if you're a 10-man company or a 1,000-man company. So we like to give those same cybersecurity protections to small businesses that large enterprises have at a fraction of the cost. And we think that, it should be available to these guys.
No, I definitely agree. Bringing back to the subject that we're here to talk about, you protect small businesses from hackers that are basically doing something with ransomware. Can you explain to me what that is?
Absolutely.
Can you educate us a little bit?
Sure. So ransomware, it's a new term for most people, but in fact, ransomware has been around since the 80s. I think that the first incident of ransomware was actually at a World AIDS conference, where infected floppy disks were passed out, and infected computers were given instructions to people to mail a check to a post office box in Panama. So ransomware has been around since, I think it was 1989 was the first case that was documented about it. But we've been hearing about it more and more in the recent years because as the digital currency Bitcoin has come around, it's been a lot easier for criminals to monetize and take advantage of people with ransomware. We'll get into Bitcoin a bit later, but ransomware is basically a malware that infects your computer after you either click a link in an email or perhaps open an infected file. And it just locks up everything on your computer. Basically, it makes your computer useless, and any documents, data, databases, photographs, email that you have on that PC is not usable until you pay the ransom that's on the screen. It gives you very explicit instructions. Sometimes that ransom is around $700 to $1,000, but we've helped companies pay ransoms in excess of $17,000.
That's crazy. I didn't even know something like that existed. It's like kidnapping your data.
Absolutely. And it's exactly what it says. It's ransomware. So it's malware that infects your computer and holds your ransom. And, it's the same phishing scheme that you see all the time. You get an email from somebody that you think you know, and it has a link in there. It says, click this link to see my new product or something like that. You click the link and it happens instantly, and there's no way to stop it. So there's a couple of ways that ransomware is being attacked right now. So there's antivirus. People are trying to write signatures and behavioral analysis that can stop ransomware that it detects. But basically, the hackers are staying one step ahead of the antivirus writers. And then there's the second way, which is the Axiom way, which is a firewall that actually has a protocol-based blocking engine that looks for the exact transportation protocol that happens when a ransomware is activated.
So who's the target of ransomware? Is it anybody, or is it just businesses?
We find that the criminals are getting very smart, and they're using tools like LinkedIn. So now, you can target people more specifically, where you used to get a lot more spam than we do today, and that's simply because hackers are not slowing down on their efforts, but they're actually getting more sophisticated and more targeted. So they're using tools like LinkedIn to see who works at a company, and they're targeting them specifically, and they're sending out infected links and things like that, and social media, trying to get them to click on things that they shouldn't.
So, like, if they were at work on their network at work, it would be able to infect that network?
Absolutely, and it's all based on the user's permission. So let's say you're a system administrator, or maybe not a system administrator. Let's say you're an HR clerk that has elevated privileges because of your duties in the HR department. It's going to be able to lock up any files that you can touch. So any servers that you have access to, maybe your file server or your file share, it could lock up those files as well. We've seen ransomware spread into as many as 100 computers almost instantly. And that's simply because whatever that user has access to, it has the ability to encrypt those files.
So what could happen if me or my business become a victim of ransomware? Like, what's at risk?
So the risk is really your data. So it depends on what is locked up. You know, a lot of times we talk to customers who've been hit with ransomware several times, but they call us the fifth time because a certain server that they really need has been infected. It can infect a lot of things, but, you know, what is important to your business, your customer data, your email, your databases, and things like that. I mean, if those things get infected or locked up, then it's going to be a very big detriment for the company. So, again, it's a big decision for the business. Do I pay the ransom? Do I not pay the ransom? You know, the best policy to have is to have daily backups and something that you can revert to so that your data is safe. And that way you don't have to pay the ransom. Your backup strategy for your data is the most important key to having an effective kryptonite for ransomware.
Now, is there certain times that I'd be more suitable to getting or becoming a victim to ransomware?
There's not really a specific time of day or week or month that ransomware is being targeted. We see campaigns that happen as new ransomware is developed. I think Locky is a new one that we saw that kind of did a trial run for a little while to see how effective it was, and then it went a little further and began to spread across the country. But ransomware comes at all times, day and night.
So can you give me an example of maybe a victim that your company has helped?
Sure. So one of the first victims that we helped out was a school district in South Carolina, actually in the same county where I was a police officer. And I found out it through a friend of mine who called me and said that they had this issue, so we helped them. In fact, the ransomware had infected 22 of the school district servers across many of their schools, and student data, faculty data, and some of their personnel data was locked up, and they had to get it back. They had no other choice than to pay the ransom. Now, the encryption that's used for ransomware is usually a SHA-256 encryption, which is very strong. You're not going to be able to decrypt it, and if you try, you'll probably destroy the data that's held inside. So even the FBI's team has said, you know, either pay the data or the data will probably be destroyed. So basically what you would do is go in and pay the ransom, get a decryption key, and be able to unlock that data. So the school district's name was Horry County School District, and they had 22 servers that were infected. They paid a ransom of $10,000 to this syndicate to get the decryption key, and they did, and actually were able to decrypt all of their files and get everything back up and running.
So what do you think is one of the biggest myths or misconceptions when it comes to ransomware?
You know, I talk to business owners every day about this exact topic, and the biggest myth that I see is that I'm not a target. You know, every customer that I talk to, every business that I talk to before the ransomware hits is they say, you know, I'm not a target. But, you know, hackers aren't really trolling the internet for businesses by name. They look for IP addresses and easy targets. They can mass email, or they can find easy low-hanging fruit, as we like to say. And we've seen companies as small as 5 people, 5 employees be attacked. We've seen companies as large as that's the largest school district in South Carolina get attacked. The Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital in California was very famously attacked for $17,000, and it ranges from the smallest to the largest. Nobody's immune from it. So to stick your head in the sand and say that I'm not a target is not a really good answer.
Like it won't happen to me?
Exactly.
So I know when you become a victim of ransomware, they hold your data in exchange for something called Bitcoin. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not very IT intelligent, I guess would be the right words for it. So what is a Bitcoin?
So a Bitcoin is a digital currency that's based on the blockchain technology, and blockchain is just a community-based hashing algorithm that is in development right now for powering some of our world's largest databases, such as the New York Stock Exchange. It's an indelible ledger that can't be changed, and there's a lot of very positive uses for the blockchain. But the Bitcoin side of that, the digital currency side of that, gets a lot of heat for being an anonymous digital currency that can be easily transferred between people and untraceable. So you can transfer dollars to Bitcoin is just like you're transferring dollars to euros. And then you can send that Bitcoin digitally across the world via the internet, and it's untraceable. So there's no way to find out who you sent it to. And that's how hackers have really taken advantage of this anonymity and being able to, go after businesses without having a trail for law enforcement to really follow.
Makes sense. So where would I buy it? Where would I buy a Bitcoin?
So there's a lot of places online, a lot of folks online that sell Bitcoin. But you have to be very careful because there's some non-reputable places as well. So people that are looking to take advantage of people who have already been taken advantage of. So, either they're going to charge you a high interest rate for the transfer, or they're just going to steal your money altogether. We've seen some illegitimate sites that are selling Bitcoin that people just lose the money completely. And we've also seen some that are charging ridiculous commissions and percentages. So you have to be very careful. So we often say if you get affected by ransomware and you have to pay a ransom, call Axiom straight away, because we have relationships with Coinbase, which is one of the most reputable Bitcoin exchanges, and we're able to buy at a larger threshold than most people. See, the one thing that people don't understand is that there's daily limits that consumers can buy Bitcoin. It's usually around $1,000 a day, maybe even $500 a day for most people. So if you get hit with a ransomware that's looking for $5,000, your business is going to have a hard time converting dollars to Bitcoins at that high level. And then there's always a timer on a ransomware. It gives you either a day or two or maybe up to a week to get the ransom paid, and then all of a sudden they destroy your data. So if you don't pay it within that certain time frame, they just destroy your data and move on. So you got to be very time conscious when this happens.
And so there's a limit of how much you can convert in a day. Coming to somebody like you who can buy a larger bulk would be...
Absolutely. And we don't charge a commission on that. We do charge like a professional services fee for, consulting or something. It's very, very small. But, we can buy up to $100,000 in Bitcoin per day, which, comes in handy for people like Horry County Schools who had to pay over $10,000, and then Hollywood Presbyterian had to pay $17,000. So to be able to acquire that quickly is very difficult for some people.
That makes sense. So if I think I've become a victim of ransomware, what would my next step be?
The first thing you should always do is report it to your local authorities. Now, the FBI takes reports on every ransomware case, and they're tracking these things, and they are investigating them. There are some that they're being able to crack and kind of get some progress against. But, you're going to need somebody on your side like an Axiom, somebody who understands Bitcoin, blockchain, and ransomware, that's going to be able to help you, restore your systems, get the decryption key, and get things back to normal. Most importantly, find a strategy to prevent it from happening again. Just tonight, I was at an IT networking event, and we talked to some folks that had been attacked 4 times. So, once you get hit with ransomware, it's an invitation for them to hit you again because they understand you're an easy target. So, make sure that you take some follow-up actions to get protected after the fact.
So if I'm a victim and they have my data and I don't have the money to pay them, will I ever get that back?
We've seen people try to negotiate with these guys and maybe get a lower price. We've seen some negotiations that were successful. We've also seen some people who were not successful in getting their data back. So it's a case-by-case basis, and, it would be something that we'd have to look into the facts of what's going on there.
So basically at the end of the day, I end up paying the ransom or I lose everything?
That is correct, yeah. And we've had people come to us that have had their mobile phones ransomware. So let's imagine, you turn your mobile phone into a brick, you lose all your data and photos on your phone. We've had, people at their house, their home PCs have been attacked, businesses as small as 5 people and all the way up to, as we mentioned, the Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. So, it's affecting people across all platforms. This is on your devices. This is on, even your Apple Watch. I'm sure they're going to develop something that can ransomware your Apple Watch, but all your devices are susceptible.
Okay, is there any kind of protection or insurance that I can purchase if I have a business or even want to protect myself from becoming a victim of ransomware?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do very well is ransomware protection. We have a patent pending algorithm that stops the ransomware at the firewall. It's protocol-based, which is different than antivirus. It doesn't look for a signature or behavior. It actually sees the exchange of the Bitcoin wallet, so then it's able to stop that transaction. So our hardware firewall at your edge is the best protection, but there's always cybersecurity liability insurance that is sold. A lot of people don't even know that exists, but you actually can buy a policy that will insure your business against these type of things, and then they can come in and perhaps pay the ransom for you if you are attacked and things like that. But you always want to be protected against it happening in the first place, because you never know what's going to happen to your data. I mean, if you do have a ransomware and you legitimately pay the ransom, there's no guarantees that the hackers are going to release your data, and there's no guarantees that they might mess it up in the process and actually destroy your data by accident. So we always like to say protection is key.
I was going to say, how do I avoid this kind of fraud?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to have those protections in place, and you got to do it beforehand. We always talk to people, it seems like after the fact, they come to us, they've been attacked 3 or 4 times, and so it's like you have to think about these things in a proactive way. The cost is small, as we mentioned. It's a very low monthly subscription. It's not going to break the bank, and it's going to give you that peace of mind at the end of the day that you need to protect your business.
So what is one strategy that a local business owner that they should include in their protection besides buying insurance? I mean, what about, like I know I have some kind of security system on my computer. Would that work, or is that just not enough?
So most firewalls that are software-based on your computer, like Windows Firewall, Windows Defender, things like that, are not going to have the specific algorithm to stop ransomware. Antivirus does pick up ransomware, so, it's not a 100% fail rate, but antivirus is always catching up to ransomware. Ransomware is changing, evolving. It's molymorphic, so it changes daily. So antivirus has to keep up. One of the things, the best strategy for any business, any consumer, any home, is to have a proper backup of your data. So if you have a backup of your data that's very recent, you can simply restore your data and the ransomware doesn't affect you. So as long as your backups are safe and you can restore that data to your computer, the ransomware, you don't have to pay the ransom. So.
Okay, well, I actually have a question about that. So if I restore my own data and they have my data or my company's data, what's to stop them from taking that data and using my customers' charge cards, or, because they would have access to all those things, correct? Absolutely.
So one of the things that we've seen recently is the combination of stealing of data along with the encryption. So before recently, most of the data that was locked up still resided on your computer. So the data was just encrypted. You couldn't use it, but it still resided on your computer. But now we are seeing cases where they're actually stealing your data as they're encrypting it. So they're making a copy offline. So they will, in fact, steal your data, your database, your usernames, your passwords, your credit cards, all that stuff that we don't want to get out. So, even if you did have a backup, if they're able to steal your data, it's still a data breach. So it's something to be very cognizant of. You need to prevent it from happening in the first place to prevent that.
Well, yeah, it's really, really important, especially if you're getting personal information from your customers and credit card information and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's crazy. So can you tell us who to contact? If anyone becomes a victim of ransomware, how would they get in contact with you guys over at Axiom? Would they contact you directly, or is there a certain number?
Absolutely. So we have the website's probably easiest to remember. It's axiomcyber.com. Our phone number is listed on there, but again, it is 1-800-519-5070. That's the easiest way to reach us. We're there 24 hours a day, by the way, for anybody that does need that assistance. But again, you make sure to report that to your local authorities and to the FBI so that they can track it and begin that investigation into this and start putting those puzzle pieces together to try to get these guys that are doing this.
Well, Troy, I want to thank you for taking the time out today to educate business owners on what ransomware is and what to do if a business becomes a victim.
Absolutely, Alicia. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. And if anybody does have any further questions, wants to go offline and give me a call to talk about a specific case, I'm always open to that and love to do educational seminars on ransomware as well to get into the more technical side of how this works.
Well, I really, really appreciate your time. This was a great interview. And like I said, I had no idea that this stuff even existed.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having us. You guys have a good night.
All right. Well, this is Alicia DeBrell with Insight Media, and until next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.